Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Evanston. I'm Bob Mesle. My pronouns are he and him. If this is your spiritual home, or if you are just discovering our community for the first time, we're glad to share this time together with you. We strive to be an inclusive and welcoming community, seeking truth through love, and nurturing the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us is worthy of love, and that we are all connected through this vast and beautiful web of existence. We gather together to remember our kinship with one another and to hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention, and to remind ourselves to more fully live our shared values. People of all ages are included and important in our community. We are blessed to have children in our sanctuary for the first half of every service, and about once a month everyone is included for the whole service. The Nest is an area right over here for families with small children, and they have quiet fidget toys and activities and a kid-friendly order of service. Nursery care is available in room 11 every service. Part of being a welcoming and inclusive community, we have some information on the screen over here that will help orient you to UCE and our service. I have some announcements. First of all, we did have a meeting with the UCE board scheduled to discuss big questions, this right after the service today, but because of illness, that has been postponed to March 30. So March 30, meet with the UCE board to discuss some big questions. However, many of us are looking for ways to resist the current administration's efforts to dismantle our democracy. And so consider visiting the Side with Love website and navigating to their Action Center and their weekly action updates. And stay tuned for messages from our UU the Vote, and stay tuned for our local response network for local activities. And now, it's that time you've been looking for, a couple of deep breaths in your life. Let us settle in to our time of shared reflection, inspiration, and celebration as we begin our worship. I invite those who are joining us online to gather your chalice as we join in beloved community. Welcome to worship.
A little bit about our introit this morning. Our introit is the poem Litany by Langston Hughes. It's set to music by John Musto, and the lyrics are a powerful prayer-like poem that articulates the collective pain and plea of marginalized communities, particularly African Americans, facing systemic oppression. Through repetitive rhythmic lines, Hughes creates a mournful yet hopeful lament, asking for basic human dignity and a better life, highlighting the shared struggle and resilience in the face of adversity.
Gather up in the arms of your pity, the sick, the depraved, the desperate, the tired, all the scum of our weary city. Gather up in the arms of your pity. Gather up in the arms of your love, those who expect no love. From above.
Thank you. That was just beautiful. Thank you. The Unitarian Church of Evanston resides on land that was recorded as being transferred from the local Potawatomi community to the U.S. government in 1829, shortly before the Potawatomi in this area were forcefully removed west of the Mississippi River. This land was then sold to white settlers. We remember the ancestors of contemporary African Americans, the individuals, families, and networks of Black people who built up our culture and our community and our economy, a role forced on them originally by enslavement. We acknowledge the intentional violence brought to North America's shores in 1619 and has continued through the generations and remains alive today. These acknowledgments are a small effort toward building long-term solidarity with contemporary communities. We commit ourselves to take what we learn today and incorporate it more fully into our lives and to turn our thoughts into shared actions. Please join in our words of commitment as shown on the screen. We name these realities with honor for all the ancestors, respect for our descendants, and gratitude for the land we use as sacred space. Lena Hilco has brought the flowers today in honor of the 8th anniversary on this very day of her husband Dave's death. As she lights our chalice, symbol of our living tradition, please join in saying the words on the screen by Pat Yerby Lichty. We come from many places, along different paths, bringing the different truths. We bring different histories and different realities, and yet we come together as one people, with faith that we can use our differences to heal ourselves and each other, to bring wholeness to a fractured world. Thank you, Lena. Please rise in body or spirit and join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Before we sing our opening hymn, I invite those joining us online to welcome each other in the chat, and those gathered in the sanctuary to turn to each other briefly, and especially to those you don't know, to greet each other this morning. Okay, sit down.
Please stay after the service to continue your conversations. Thank you for remaining standing as well. If you are new to UCE, please stop by the welcome table with the red cloth at the back of the sanctuary to get more information about our community. Let us keep creating new relationships and building kinship among us. Soon we will sing our opening hymn. We're going to sit at the welcome table. This hymn is a traditional American gospel song and an African American folk song, likely written by an enslaved person. The song has multiple meanings, but it expresses a desire for true inclusion. It also served as an anthem for the civil rights movement as one of the freedom songs. Please join in singing. We're going to sit at the welcome table.
Whew. That was fun. Good morning, everyone. Our time for all ages this morning is from a book called In the Neighborhood by Rocio Bonilla. There it is. Once upon a time, there was a neighborhood like so many others. It had houses, street lights, trees, and neighbors who had never met one another. Camilla lived at number 15. There was always a lot of noise coming out of her house. The neighbors figured she was hard of hearing, so she had to turn up the volume on her TV. But the real reason for all that noise was that Camilla had 10 babies who were 10 bundles of energy. Camilla didn't dare to start up a conversation with her neighbor, Mr. Martinez. He seemed so serious and so straight-laced. She was convinced he didn't like kids and wouldn't want to have anything to do with her. Mr. Martinez worked in the city. He was an important lawyer, just like his mother, grandfather, and great-grandfather before him. If only I had an audience, he sighed. His neighbors were a noisy hen and a huge dragon who didn't seem to have much of a sense of humor. The truth was that there was no huge dragon living on the street. Mr. Martinez's neighbor was a little mouse who lived in fear because a cat had moved nearby. And we all know what cats like to eat, right? Philip the mouse was very creative, and he came up with a clever solution to keep his dangerous feline neighbor from coming anywhere near him. What Philip couldn't possibly imagine was that the cat across the street was vegan. Yeah. So he never ate mice. Rodolfo the cat loved to play cards, knit pillows, and most of all, lovingly tend his vegetable garden. Rodolfo was so shy that he'd never even once waved to his neighbor. Would you risk annoying a fierce dragon? On the corner lived Matilda, a brilliant scientist. She worked all day in her garage building astonishing inventions. Matilda spoke only to her robots because she had no one else to talk to. She figured no one lived next door. That house was always locked up tight. But someone did live there. It was just that Mrs. Paquita slept all day, like owls do. Then she spent all night on the internet, reading the news and playing game after game of solitaire. Guilty. She didn't even remember to raise her blinds. The truth was, Pepe was a bookworm who yearned to share his love of reading. He dreamed about organizing a book club in the neighborhood, or even better, two. One for books about traveling, and another for superhero books, which were his favorite kind. Then one fine day, something terrible happened. Guess. Mrs. Paquita's internet connection stopped working. Oh dear, this is horrible, she moaned. Matilda was shocked to hear her neighbor. Someone did live next door. Since Matilda was very handy, she was able to solve Mrs. Paquita's problem in the blink of an eye. The next day, Mrs. Paquita realized that she needed one more egg for her cake recipe. She rang her neighbor's doorbell for the first time ever. Pepe the ogre was very pleased to see she wasn't afraid of him, and he ran down to have tea and cake. Camilla looked out her window and was surprised to see 3 neighbors eating cake together. That made her think that she should try knocking on Mr. Martinez's door. She found out that he wasn't so straight-laced after all. Rodolfo the cat got a big surprise when he decided to put aside his fear and shyness to go visit his dragon neighbor for the very first time. Soon everyone knew one another. They became friends. The neighborhood was now something different, a community. And everybody was happier. The end.
I invite us to settle in now for a time of quiet reflection as we share our joys and sorrows. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like spoken aloud, you may write it in the book that is at the back of the sanctuary. You can submit it through the Google form on our website, or you can just email one of the ministers. We listen to these offerings with tenderness and respect. Let us now please quiet our bodies and voices during this sacred time. Kids are exempt. Let us breathe in together and breathe out. We have a couple of joys from the book today. John and Will say, our daughter is visiting from Washington State and is happily greeting old friends here at UCE. They say, come say hi to Gretchen after the service. Another joy from Bree, she says, big congratulations to my sister Stephanie for being sober from drugs and alcohol for over a year. Yeah. She says she just got a job again and is on the road to happiness, and we celebrate with you. We have a joy from Jane and Lee Banner. They're delighted to announce the birth of Lina Marasa Alush. Apologies if I got that incorrect. Lina Masara Alush on February 27th. They say mother and daughter are fine. Masara is Arabic for joy, and it is the name of her great-grandmother who is still with us at 95. Andy Fisher shares a joy. He says, yesterday I took public transit all the way to the Healing Temple on the west side of Chicago to a rally for Mayor Johnson. He says he is very courageous to keep Chicago open as a sanctuary city. Close to 100 people attended. And finally, we have a sorrow. Elaine Siegel writes, we are mourning the death on February 25th of Julie Wostahoff, our dear friend of 40-some years. Together, we worked for decades on advocacy for public education for marginalized children with a focus on Chicago local councils, which we supported through training, advocacy, and litigation. Julie and her husband, Reverend Larry Turpin, were instrumental in the abolition of the death penalty in Illinois. Julie passes on a legacy of love, leadership, and joy. Thank you for sharing, Elaine. Sharing these concerns of the heart is part of the practice of beloved community. Together we expand our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. You are invited to light a candle at one of the 3 stations at the front or at the sides for the joys and sorrows of your own heart, either now or at any time during the service. And if you would like a candle brought to you, please raise your hand. Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of love and life, great mystery within us, among us, and around us, we come together as our whole selves, with our joys, our struggles, our open hearts, our broken hearts, our conviction, and our righteous indignation. We come with gratitude for this shared time together. May we be present to the needs within us and around us. May we be flexible to shift where we are needed. And may we have the courage to continue to love boldly. Ashe and Amen. As we sing our response, our young people, preschool through 8th grade, are invited to head to their faith formation time with their adult leaders. Please join in singing the we verse of Filled with Loving Kindness.
May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
As we say in our covenant every Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, and to express gratitude through giving. Today's offering will be shared with the Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministry of Illinois, or UUPMI, whose mission is transforming institutions and partnering with supporting people harmed by the prison industrial complex. Mary Ellen McGoey, are you here to speak about this? Welcome, come on up.
Good morning. I'm Mary Ellen McGoey, she, her, hers, and I am a member of the Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministry of Illinois Steering Committee. I'm glad to share with you a few words about our ministries. The UU Prison Ministry of Illinois is dedicated to addressing the gross injustices in our criminal punishment system: mass incarceration, dehumanizing treatment, lack of restorative justice, and barriers to housing and employment when released. We focus on two main functions. One, working with those who are survivors of the system while they are in prison and after they are released. And two, collaborating and bringing UU values into the advocacy efforts, working to transform the system. Our mission is to equip UUs in Illinois to transform institutions, partnering with and supporting people harmed by the prison industrial complex. We work towards the vision of a world where no one is outside the circle of love. We thank you for your contributions, and may what you give bring you joy.
You may text to give mail in a check, put cash in the bowls, or give through our website. If you write a check, please indicate on the memo line if your check is for the shared offering or some other giving. The ushers will now come forward to pass the collection bowls down the rows. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy.
In The Gifts of Imperfection, Brené Brown delves into the profound difference between fitting in and true acceptance, belonging, true belonging. She emphasized that fitting in often requires us to change ourselves to be accepted, whereas true belonging is about embracing and being accepted for our authentic selves. Brené Brown writes, "Fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are." The courage to be vulnerable and authentic is essential for cultivating meaningful connections and a sense of belonging. By letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we truly are, we open ourselves up to genuine relationships and a wholehearted life.
everyone born a place at the table. For everyone born clean water and bread, a shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born a star overhead. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For young and for old, a place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song. The hands of a child in the hands that are wrinkled. For young and for old, the right to belong. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. Joy, joy, joy. For everyone born a place at the table, to live without fear and simply to be, to work, to speak out, to witness and worship. For everyone born the right to be free. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy, justice and joy, justice and joy, justice and joy.
So beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to go off script for just a second in the name of showing up authentically and just name that my heart is so heavy with what is happening in this country, and I know that I am not the only one. The Proctor conference I went to last week, which is a Black faith leader conference, was amazing. And in one of the sermons, I wrote about this in my newsletter article this week. One of the sermons, the minister said, he spoke truth from the pulpit. He said that our leaders need to have empathy. They need to feel for the people. And he named that the psychopath in office used the power given to him by the people on the people. And so though my heart is breaking, I want you to know that if your heart is breaking, we are in this together, always stronger together. Amen. Thank you. I think some things just need to be said. We have to speak the truth of our hearts. And in this climate of divisiveness and exclusion, where diversity, equity, and inclusion is under attack and canceled in many areas, I think it's more important than ever to think about what it means to be multiculturally inclusive and fully humanizing of each other. So that's what this sermon is about today. So I invite us to ask the question, what does it look like to be truly welcoming and truly humanizing and multiculturally inclusive to the people that we encounter? What does it look like to place the well-being of other people inside of our own hearts in our day-to-day lives? Now, I think of UCE as a community that is, I know you have worked on it, I've heard about it, I've lived it, I've experienced it. I also understand that there's always more work to do, both within and outside of our walls. And I think a big part of the work of the church is the work of creating safe haven, where we can show up fully and authentically. People can come with their broken hearts as well as their joys. I think churches ought to be places where we recognize our magnificent molecular and emotional interdependence with one another, where we can witness each other and lean into each other's stories to learn more and more about what it means to live in this world. And then we can bring those experiences into the other parts of our lives outside of these walls. Now, the Unitarian Universalist Association's work on multiculturalism, the Leadership Council came up with a vision to create a fully inclusive community where, quote, all people are welcomed as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled. It's a beautiful notion. A fully inclusive community where all people are welcomed as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled. Now that sounds like healing and safe haven to me. And it sounds like just what we need in these divisive times. But it begs the question, how do we do that work? What does it look like exactly? What does it look like to further radical inclusion and actualize a welcoming community that is a safe haven in this world that people want to keep coming back to? I dare say that the divisiveness in this country contributes to the epidemic of loneliness. I don't know if you heard, in 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General put out a special bulletin about the epidemic of loneliness in this country. He called it a health crisis. He said that lacking connection can increase the risk of premature death to levels comparable to smoking daily, not to mention the impact on quality of life, let alone the length. There are folks out there just really struggling. I was surprised to learn, actually, that it's young adults who had the highest self-reported levels of isolation and loneliness. Now, a 2019 Pew Research poll showed that 79% of U.S. adults believe Americans have too little confidence in each other. We're not trusting each other. And only 16% of polled Americans reported that they felt very attached to their local communities. So we're not trusting each other and we're not feeling connected to each other on the whole. Of course, those things are related. And we could do a whole sermon series about that, but I think it has a lot to do with othering other people. A failure of creative imagining about people in their own contexts, and a failure to trust them when they tell us about their experiences from their own point of view. So I think restorative, beloved community is aspirational towards confronting the epidemic of loneliness and healing some of the divisiveness in our nation. There's need out there, and I know that there's desire in this congregation. It's one of our main mission statements. And also, the board is embarking on a journey of discovery by hosting a series of conversations about what it could look like to further build beloved community, make it more inclusive and accessible. Also, our anti-oppression task force is working on this. They're working on a justice revival to bring folks together in communal renewal and mutual empowerment. More details to come later. So we're doing some of the work here, and I want to give us that credit. This is a beautiful community doing such good work together. The Surgeon General suggests we do things like strengthen social infrastructure and cultivate a culture of connection. And although I see we're doing some of that collective work at UCE, I really want to ask the question, what can I do? What can you do? What does it look like for you and for I to build robust, authentic connections with people? To witness each other in ways that does honor to our lived experiences and to create connection, healing, and trust. What does that work actually look like? For me, I think it starts with welcoming the other, but not just the other out there, the other within as well. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke often of the transforming power of the encounter with the other within. He said that inner transformation was essential to social transformation, and he's not the only one. We can do the work together, but if we don't do the work within, he says, we can't really be effective. So what does it mean to encounter the other within? When I think about that, I think it's about noticing what you feel when you experience someone making a choice that you wouldn't necessarily make for yourself, or doing something that you wouldn't necessarily choose to do, and there can be some real discomfort there. Sometimes that discomfort is because we're putting other people into our own contexts, perhaps even with some sense of judgment, and this can happen automatically. But if we can recognize, if we can be present to what's alive within us and notice that judgment, discomfort is coming up, we can do, as mindfulness teacher Tara Brach talks about, we can do that U-turn, noticing what's happening in our own hearts and getting curious instead of judgmental. So let me give you an example from my own life. I grew up in a really quiet Midwest home, and my parents had immigrated from England, so we were very British and we were very reserved. Even our fashion was quiet. There was a lot of beige. And when we would encounter groups of boisterous people expressing themselves loudly, it was really foreign to me at first. If I'm honest, sometimes it was off-putting. And it took intentionality, but eventually I came to recognize the beauty in that unfamiliar way of being, to see the camaraderie and the valuable self-expression, to understand that while I was taught and shown to be much more reserved, these other ways of being, living out loud, not just resonated with some folks, but were affirmations of life, if not resistance to cultural imperialism. So eventually I learned to have vicarious joy from the loud laughter of people in restaurants. And at UCE, I've seen us come together and create raucous fun. There was the Laissez le bon temps rouler board party not too long ago. That was awesome. We have another dance party coming up on Friday with the UCE Lively Spirits dancers. And I mentioned last week I was at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference for Black Faith Leaders, and I was honored to witness ecstatic, embodied conviction and solidarity in that space. We have so much to learn from each other in general. Learning to love folks for how they choose to show up for themselves in the world, as expressions of their authentic selves, that took intentionality. Let's be honest, examining our own biases can be really uncomfortable. Recognizing implicit and explicit teachings from our culture and confronting the limits of our worldview can be deeply uncomfortable. It is hard work holding up that mirror to our assumptions and to admit that we may be wrong or we may be limited. But that discomfort is a sign that we are stretching, we are growing, we are making room for alterity, for other ways of being. So if we can meet that discomfort with curiosity and compassion instead of defensiveness or judgment, it becomes fertile ground for transformation. It opens the possibility for radical acceptance, inclusion, and authentic relationship. Radical welcome asks us to be vulnerable. It asks us to admit that we don't always know what's best for other people, and that our training may not capture the whole picture. It asks us to trust people to sort out what's best for themselves. It asks us to decenter our own comfort in service of creating belonging for other people. Writer and activist Adrienne Marie Brown, one of my very favorite authors, she says that we need to move at the speed of trust. She says this means that whenever attempting any effort with other people, we prioritize building trust and respect for each other over and above any other goal. Prioritize building trust and respect for each other over and above any other goal. So it was important for me to learn and to examine my own internalized biases about how to show up in the world with reservation and lots of beige. Because if I watched my thoughts, I saw that I was making snap judgments about people by placing them in my context, in my stories. I was not in good relationship. I was othering other people. And I was preventing them from feeling safe to show up with authenticity by doing so. So now the work. What does it look like to cultivate this radical welcoming? How do we heal the externally imposed divisiveness that we may have internalized? The default of the way that I know how to be is the way to be. I believe it has everything to do with where our hearts are at, starting with that U-turn of inward examination of the other within. So I'm going to offer you 3 takeaways for creating radical welcome and authentic healing relationship. Number 1, foster a sense of authentic belonging. Number 2, listen as if everyone is our teacher. And number 3, keep accountability to each other. So number 1, fostering a sense of authentic belonging, a place where people can show up as their full, authentic selves without needing to conform, as we heard Brené Brown talk about in The Gifts of Imperfection. This is radical acceptance. And as Tara Brach teaches, it has to apply to ourselves as well as other folks. Getting curious about our experiences and believing people from their own points of view to form that sense of belonging. But how do we know what other people's points of view or lived experiences are? What do we know about their contexts? Well, we get curious about them, and that brings us to number 2. Listen as if everyone is our teacher. We can listen knowing that we can learn someone from each and every person that we meet. It's an acknowledgement of the dignity and lived wisdom of the experiences of the other. It's a listening not to respond, but a listening to understand. And part of that has to involve noticing our own assumptions and judgments once again, which is related to number 3, accountability to others. Accountability to others is essential for authentic connection. Otherwise, it's only ever surface, and we never break into deep, real relationship. We cultivate the ability to bravely hear and bravely say, oops and ouch. Oops, I didn't realize that phrase had harmful origins. I'm sorry I used it. Ouch, that thing you said didn't land probably how you meant it. Or, ouch, I don't really feel understood here. Moving through that generative conflict is where the deepening of relationship can happen. It's an openness to critique and insight from other perspectives while relinquishing the justification of intent. And it allows for authentic showing up and the kind of accountability that deepens trust and strengthens relationships. So to recap, fostering a sense of authentic belonging, listening as if everyone is our teacher, and being accountable to each other. If we wish to fulfill that vision and create a fully inclusive community where all people are welcomed as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled, the work begins within. It begins by noticing our own judgments, by making that U-turn towards curiosity and centering love. This isn't just about self-edification, it's harm reduction, it's healing, and it's how we resist the forces that seek to divide us and reclaim the awesome power of our interconnectedness, because we are greater than the sum of our parts. The epidemic of loneliness and deep divisiveness is tied to an illusion of separateness, but we are not separate. My 6 years of PhD work in biochemistry will tell you we are not separate. Molecularly, emotionally, we are connected in so many ways. Some people try to exacerbate this illusion of separateness for political gain. But our liberation is bound together. So may we move at the speed of trust. May we listen with curiosity and humility. May we widen the circle of love until there is no circle at all. And so may it be. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
As we extinguish the chalice, please let us join in reading the words on the screen by Reverend Elizabeth Zell Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, number 346, Sing a Song with Me.
Sing a song with me, that I might know
work here this morning is at an end. And our work has just begun. The work of holding one another in this community in love. The work of trusting that we are on the right path. The work of believing that what connects us is stronger than what separates us. The work of engaging in that which makes us whole. The work of deeper understanding and commitment. The work of letting go that which does not serve us. The work of radical inclusion. The work of collective liberation. The work of beloved community. A beloved community of which we are all a part. A place where we are welcomed, respected, valued, cherished. A place where all people are welcomed as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled. Go in peace. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be.